So, yesterday was the 18th of March, 2024, and there was a Board of Commissioners meeting in Cabarrus County. Now, I'm not really involved in local politics. I suppose I will be now because it was pretty interesting. I am also not a journalist, really. This is the first sort of journalistic thing that I've done. It's really, um, it's not like heavy, hard-hitting kind of journalism. It's really the lowest level of journalism because everything that I have recorded is pretty much public information, other than interviews that I got with people. But what happened was I was driving through downtown Concord, and by the way, over here, I'm going to show you a map of the United States and then North Carolina, and then you'll see the location of Concord and Charlotte on that map as well. I might throw in the interstates so that you get an idea of how Concord and Charlotte are really connected, because Charlotte has been expanding, and Concord, being located on Interstate 85, is also expanding because people are moving to Concord because they have jobs in Charlotte, so on and so forth. There are also a lot of smaller towns that are farther from the interstate that so you in Cabarrus County you get a real mix of city folks, suburban folks, and then people that are very rural. And so it's a culturally diverse area. And anyway, so I was driving through downtown Concord, and I saw some people out in front of the county building that were protesting, and I thought, hey, that looks interesting, and I'm not super busy. So I went on to my errand, and then I was done with that, so I came back to downtown, and I parked, and I got out, because these people had dudes' faces on the sign, and they had a bullhorn, so I was interested to see, what they were out there protesting. And so I got out there and I talked to them, and you're going to see the interview that I had with one of the gentlemen in that protest and a couple of the ladies. And they basically told me that they are alleging corruption in DSS, in the Cabarrus County DSS. They said that there is a conflict of interests because the DSS attorney, who I also got an interview with, and I will show that later on. I think that will be the last thing that I get to in the video, because I just want to go chronologically. But they say that because he is the DSS attorney, and he also is a private attorney, then there is a conflict of interest, because one lady was saying that he had represented her and her ex-husbands, and so that would be an obvious conflict of interest if he was representing two people on both sides. Anyway, he addresses that in the interview that I got with him. I personally don't have a dog in this fight. I just thought it was an interesting story, and I thought it would be cool to give both sides an opportunity to talk, and then I could just sort of put it together in a YouTube video. And then in between those two segments, I'm going to have another segment, because I did go into the commissioners' meeting and I recorded some of the statements from the public. Now, there was more going on at this meeting than the DSS thing. There was also a couple of things that people were talking about. Number one, tax revaluations, or property revaluations resulting in increased tax assessments. And there were quite a lot of people that were worked up about that. And then the second thing was Steve Morris, who is the chairman of the Board of Commissioners in this county. Apparently, he was beaten in the primary the Republican primary this past, I guess that was 2 weeks ago now. And I voted in that primary, but I didn't vote for, I don't think I voted for that section on the ballot because I didn't know anything about it. But now I do, and what I know is that, because I did get to talk to Larry Pittman after the meeting, and he also gives a statement, which will be in that middle segment there in the video. He told me, basically, that this Steve Morris guy, he was beaten in the primary by two candidates, Larry Pittman and Lindsey Blackwelder or something, I don't know. So he was beaten by both candidates, and then he reached out to a state legislator, Kevin Crutchfield, and so what he reached out to him for was to push a bill to increase the board from 5 to 7 members. And then somehow, I don't know how that works, but through that process, then Steve Morris would be able to retain his position. And there were a lot of people that were worked up about that, saying, you need to step down because the people have spoken, we don't want you, you were beaten by two candidates in the primary. So I thought that was interesting, but the primary focus of this video is going to be the DSS, Jay White. I also asked Larry Pittman about Jay White. He said Jay White has run against him twice. And the first time, Larry Pittman didn't have a lot of money. He had like $8,600. And Jay White went after him hard in the campaign, and he was nasty, according to Mr. Pittman. And Mr. White had a lot of money, but he still lost by 2%. And then the second time around, when they ran against each other, Mr. White, according to Mr. Pittman, again, this is all secondhand information. I'm not making any claims of my own, so if anybody watches this that is implicated, you can't sue me, because I don't know anything about this. I don't know any of you guys. I just thought this was a cool story. Anyway, proceeding, Mr. Pittman said that the second time around, Mr. White was going after him hard in the campaign again. Mr. Pittman had a lot more money than he did the first time around, still not as much as Mr. White, but Mr. Pittman still won the second time, and he got 63% of the vote, he said. So, anyway, if anybody is watching this that I interviewed, thank you for the interview, and I don't know if I'll ever do journalism again, but this was fun. So anyway, I thought this was interesting, and I hope that y'all will too, and roll the tape.
You're here today. Where's his picture? You need that.
Get his picture. His picture.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
So Amy's getting her picture off. And I'll stand with mine signed.
We're going to end the corruption in Cabarrus County, folks. We're going to end it. But we need you guys to come out and vote in November. Tonight, we're going to end Jay's White contract.
Now, tell him why we need to end Jay White's contract.
Jay White is the most despicable attorney you will ever meet. This man will lie in court. This man has represented this nice woman right here. He represented her 2 ex-husbands. How can one attorney represent 3 people? That's unconstitutional and unethical. Let's come on, people. Really?
So
You can't do that.
Jay White is over DSS. He's over DSS, child support. He's over the county contract. He was over the school board. He has his hand in way too many pots, and he's human trafficking children. If you go to DSS and complain about a sexual assault, or if you complain and need mental health for your child, they'll automatically go and take your children from you, even put your children in the abuser's home, and then give you charges for abuse and it's just a monopoly, and it's a human trafficking scheme because the people, the group homes and the foster homes get $800 a kid, and the state gets matched that same $800.
And all of this falls within the family, what they call the family court industry. It's all, you have Department of Health and Human Services, you have family court itself, you have juvenile court, you have what some call dependency court, depending on where you get placed in the system, like what happens or what they say happened. And then they're really big in the family court industry on creating orders that are fraudulent. So they have what they call no contact orders, where if they don't want you to speak to the other parties, then they just create an order and say you're not allowed to contact whoever. Like in my case, I have a no contact for my 4-year-old child. Some people have gag orders that say you're not allowed to speak about your case at all. That means social media, to other people, to anybody expose it. And so all of these orders, these no contact, these gag orders, they are unconstitutional. They're violating people's First Amendment rights. Of course, there are a lot of other rights that are being violated, but I think for what we're looking at here within the family court realm, the First Amendment, when you're looking at also due process, these are big in these cases, whether it's if you're looking at a real court, like a criminal court or a civil court that's more rational, but family court just literally makes up whatever they want.
Family court is becoming criminal. They're using criminal court.
It's a criminal industry.
And
It's
Jay
a RICO
White is
industry.
one of the highest criminal lawyers in this state, in this county. He's the highest criminal lawyer in the county. He's deeming people in and out of competency to get out of criminal charges, but then giving them children, but yet taking away children from the victims of the crime. He does whatever he can with his position of power to harm other people.
And that is
get
here in
paid for it.
Cabarrus County. And this stuff is happening all across the United States. I have a case in New Hanover County and another case in Mecklenburg County. But we're here today with moms, mainly from Cabarrus, but you have moms and dads literally across the country. So with what we're here today for is because the county commissioners are going to vote on this guy's contract. And these people are here to expose this man to say, hey, you shouldn't be paying this guy. This guy's doing not only things that are unethical and immoral, it's illegal in every aspect, human rights. I mean, just across the board, constitutionally, no matter how you look at it, it's not right.
Do you think, if I may, do you think this has anything to do with the border crisis?
There are aspects. I actually am talking with a mom out of San Francisco County right now who she said the whole county, what they're doing with moms are putting them in dependency court. So they're getting moms actually coming in this country illegally because they're trying to escape their abusers, but then what they're doing is asking these moms, now we need you to prove that you have family here. Well, you just they're like, well, you just let me in because this abuser is abusing me and my child, and they've done whatever they've done to them. So what the state is then doing is taking their kids from them. They have nowhere to go. They have no one to tell. So the mom that I'm working with right now in San Francisco is wanting nothing more than to just expose the things in her county, because she said there's so many of them that they're getting some like leeway, but you have to really have independent journalism like yourself and like Aidan here with APMedia, who's helping to expose this stuff, because there's no major media outlet that really wants to touch the depth of it unless there's some sort of funding that they can, I guess,
They want to keep you quiet. That's part of the corruption. The gag orders, the gatekeeper orders. Currently, I can't even file anything for myself, and I'm trying to speak in large process right now because I have a gag order where I can't actually talk about my case. But I'm trying to speak about as a whole of what's going on. The county is corrupt. They're human trafficking children and getting paid for it.
It's the entire industry, and what I would like to see with my nonprofit is for the entire family court industry to change, to be restructured, because right now it's a for-profit industry that is not helping. It's no longer serves its intended purpose.
Is there anything that people could research at home to learn more about this,
If you go on Slam the Gavel for Marianne Petrie, there's a lot of stories out there that are similar. We know a lot of people, they're targeting special needs children. DSS even went into a school in North Carolina and had an 18-year-old sign herself over to the state. We just helped get another child back that had been taken by DSS for 3 years and put in a group home facility to the mother. So it's
Now, I do have a nonprofit. It's adelies.org. We help empower families. It started more to help mothers and bring awareness, because we were searching for awareness for transparency and accountability. But then once we started learning more about this issue, we realized how big and how deep it was. Like you said, the trafficking component, like she was talking about a little bit, but the trafficking of kids into the United States is just one piece of it. But the entire family court industry as a whole is a problem. And there are a lot of, not just moms, but other advocates across the country that are exposing different levels of this. So I do, within my blog, share some of those different resources that people can go to, depending on what exactly they're dealing with or what they're trying to seek help with. But definitely more needs done. And I think that we're going to have to restrain the agencies and abolish some laws for some real change to happen.
I'm saying Mental Awareness Month is in May, and my daughter had mental problems, but evidently everybody was unaware of it. But they shouldn't have been. That's why I brought her to Cabarrus County DSS, to make them aware and to get help. And this was hidden. And we got a prosecutor sitting back here begging for his job. That prosecutor didn't know who he's prosecuting. I bet if he knew he was prosecuting my child, who was totally mental, schizophrenic, he would have had a lawyer on her side. But he sat up there with a judge that he worked with. Ethics don't seem right, and he's going to come up here and beg for his job. I don't know why it was took off the agenda, but we just come to say no, Jay White. No, Jay White. I wouldn't be here today probably if it wasn't for Jay White. No, Jay White. He don't deserve nothing else. We need to go in-house like they suggested, and there's a reason for that. A lot of ethics involved. And we don't need no outside. That's a scandal been going on for 8 years. We got scandals going on right now. We got a scandal going on with a person, and I will say that he's prosecuting in DSS and an ex. And he's doing ungodly things to this person. The scandals keep going on. I was up there court watching, and lo and behold, Jessica Bridges was there, the same person that started this, and the same prosecutor there, Jay White, still going on today. Y'all can't tell me why y'all took my child. Good chance she's right here to tell you why. That she was untrained. She didn't get it to the right place. She was untrained. You cannot take our children. We love our children. Anybody has a child, we love our children. Don't take our children wrongly. My child taken on Saturday night, crazy. They abused my child so much, the mental child, that she was in the hospital when they come and took her child. How can this be? Y'all talk about Mental Awareness Month. Why didn't y'all aware of my child?
And our next card is from Jeter and Garrison, Kannapolis, North Carolina. I don't want to waste no time. Jay White's got to go. To have a contract attorney, what if he hurts somebody? What if he kills somebody? And you contract him out? Well, it should be every bit of in-house. If you gotta pay the extra money for the extra few lawyers and the paralegals, yeah, that's more ethical. It seems more right than having a big conflict of interest. How many law firms does this guy have? 3? One in the court building, one right there, and one down there. Go in the clerk's office whenever he wants. Can my attorney go in the clerk's office whenever he wants? This is a big conflict of interest in this county, and nobody can use this court system. Mike Downs is not supposed to have anything to do with this court system, but it has everything to do with it. And as for my sister being abused and neglected and exploited, she was. I just want to know why this evidence wasn't considered at all. Who wanted her child so bad that they would do anything to somebody to take her? Who hired that person? Who contracted that person? Why is it okay to contract somebody to hurt somebody? How do you contract somebody to hurt somebody? Well, I think you can talk to the county manager about that. He knows all about contracting people out that hurt people. My sister was hurt, abused, neglected. And she was the most caring person you could ever meet. Very caring. She cared. She cared about what you needed. She cared about how you sounded, what you looked like, how you felt. And I try my darndest to bring this trait back, but I can't bring nothing back because y'all taking it away wrongly. So if you can't bring our child back, go in-house. Don't let this happen to anybody else. In-house is a good start. That's a good start to our DSS. Don't you show me a county that contracts their lawyer out, I'll show you a county with DSS problems all around. I promise you that. Do it how it should be. In-house attorneys at your DSS. And the problems, we can fight them. We can fight fairly. We can't fight fairly with a county attorney that's also a private attorney in our area that walks freely in this building. And I was just joking about moving your DSS over in that building, but basically it is, isn't it?
Okay, our next card is from James L. Campbell.
Good afternoon. I'm James L. Campbell. First of all, I want to give praises to my Savior Jesus Christ. Commissioners and you so-called leaders of Cabarrus County, what is it going to take for you to realize that you do not represent the best interests of your citizens? None of you take accountability for the injustice that everyday people like myself endure. Elise Pugh, the assistant county manager, and Mike Downs, your county manager, met with my wife and myself on December 23rd regarding DSS illegal seizure of our 4 children on August the 7th. Until this date, nothing has been done to bring our 4 children back. Mike, you're quick to say that you don't know what's going on. At least you're too busy want to quote policy that doesn't exist. Across the street, we have corruption and collusion with attorney H.J. White, whose contract does not need to be renewed. Across the street, you have corrupt judges like Christy Wilhelm, who need to be off the bench. Across the street, you have DSS workers working, lying in petitions like Jessica Killen. You have corrupt people that work with the Guardian Ad Litem program like Faith Williams, corrupt people like Dane Franklin. They know the truth of why these children should not be taken, but instead of telling the truth, they write petitions and put lies in front of our judicial system that's supposed to be free for all people. Cabarrus County, it's time for change. None of these so-called leaders represents the common Cabarrus County citizen. You so-called leaders, you so-called attorneys and judges, we are sick and tired of being sick and tired. It is time for these chickens to come home to roost by any means necessary.
The next card is from Megan Henderson.
Good evening. I'm Megan Henderson, and I'm a resident in Cabarrus County, and I've previously been a guardian ad litem for children in foster care in Cabarrus County, and I've now been a foster parent for Cabarrus County Department of Human Services for over 5 years. I've recently been made aware of the department's proposal to host in-house attorneys rather than to continue their contract with Hartzell and Williams. As a foster parent who has had numerous children in and out of my home over the past 5 years, this concerns me greatly. I have 5 children that live in my home, 1 who is currently in the custody of CCDHS, and 4 who have permanency through adoption because of the way that Jay White and his team have advocated for them throughout their years in foster care. I think it is of the utmost importance that you recognize that these are real children and that this decision impacts. If you heard their stories and knew their names and saw their faces like I do, I promise that you too would be passionate about Jay White remaining the advocate for those within the Cabarrus County child welfare system. Most of the children that have come through my home now have permanency through reunification with their biological families, legal guardianship, or adoption, largely because of Jay and his team advocating for their individualized best interest. The truth is that many of my children would likely still be lingering in the child welfare system should they have been born in any of our surrounding counties. I've had children in my home who have experienced more in their short years than many adults could even fathom. This is not a place that we should be looking to slightly conserve money, even though I do not believe restructuring our legal staffing for CCDHS would be of any financial benefit. The turnover in our child welfare countrywide is considerable, and sadly it is to the detriment of our nation's children. Adding in-house attorneys to CCDHS would likely add to that cycle rather than provide a source of stability like Jay and his team have been for the past 10 years. Over the past 5 years, I've watched the staffing within CCDHS Child Welfare Division fluctuate and change on numerous occasions. However, Jay White has remained dependable and consistent. In my opinion, this is a completely unnecessary and unwarranted change. I would urge you to please consider what is at stake here. These children who I know and love, children who are the absolute most vulnerable in our county, children who I've seen Jay White advocate for fiercely. Should attorneys be hired in-house for CCDHS, it would take months, but likely years for the new hires to really get a solid understanding of the current ongoing cases, creating longer timelines to permanency for our county's children who are currently in foster care. Meanwhile, children continue to enter into the child welfare system each month, contributing further to the overwhelm of the system. I deeply appreciate the work that Jay White and his team put in for our county's children, and I hope and pray that they will still be able to continue the job that they have done so well for the past 10 years.
Our next card is from Morgan White.
Good evening. My name is Morgan White. I'm a resident of Cabarrus County, current Cabarrus County foster parent of almost 4 years, an adopted parent of 4 children that spent time in Cabarrus County foster care. And I believe it is also important that I share with you all that at the age of 10, I was removed from my family and placed into Cabarrus County foster care. I would like for it to be known that I strongly oppose the idea of restructuring our county's DHS legal representation and think it would be a detriment to our county's children to implement such a drastic and unnecessary change. I urge you to consider that these are children's lives we are talking about. Hartzell and Williams, Jay White specifically, has served as a powerful and consistent voice for the children in our county, fighting for what is right, advocating for permanency through reunification, legal guardianship, or adoption, and consistently doing right by our children. That is something you cannot put a price tag on. I think it is important to mention in my almost 4 years of being a foster parent, I have had children come to me in the middle of the night, one child coming to me the week of Christmas. That should speak for itself that Jay and his team are accessible and willing to work with any community calls. This is something that I know is not consistent across our state. I have sat in court many times and can truly say I've never questioned if Jay would do what is right by our county's most vulnerable children. You hear horror stories about the legal staff of our surrounding county's child welfare departments. That is not the case for our county. An entirely legal staff would come in and have to learn the stories and cases of over 200 children and stories that Jay and his team know by name. Turnover rates in child welfare are astronomical. We do not need more county employees to stick around for maybe 6 months. We need a dedicated team, which Jay and Hartzell and Williams have provided for 10 years. Please, I urge you to look at the statistics no better stranger to advocate for them than Jay and his team. They truly care, and that matters so much more than many of these other factors. Our county's children depend on someone to advocate fiercely for them. Jay and his team have proven their dedication. Please approve this change. When something is not broken, like much of our child welfare system is, I believe it is important to keep the parts in place that are working well. Thank you.
Okay, our next card is from Bonnie Gregory.
Wanted to talk about the tax assessments that have recently been taken on homes in the Cabarrus County area. And I myself received my tax assessment, and it was $30,000 to $40,000 higher.
My name is Rich Wise. I'm a citizen of Cabarrus County, and I'm also a Midland councilman. Cabarrus County voters spoke loudly during the primary election early this month. Despite Chairman Steve Morris and his associated group spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on consultants, text messages, and mailers, he lost. In fact, my longtime friend, and yes, I am very proud to call her my friend, Laura Blackwell, Lindsay, beat Steve by over 1,500 votes. And it was her first time running for the county commissioner. Laura was a top vote getter. That's called a mandate. And this was despite your friends of Paula Cabarrus thrashing her and a never-ending barrage of text messages and mailers. You even trashed her about her breast cancer. What a new low, Steve. Both for you and your group. There is nothing quality about trashing Laura over something related to her breast cancer. And Larry Pittman beat Chairman Steve Morris. Larry won with hardly any campaigning and just a few $1,000s in the campaign contributions. Imagine if he put an effort into it. The voters want change, no doubt. I heard you talking to a local legislator, your good friend, Kevin Crutchfield, specifically, about special legislation language to put you back on county commissioner despite losing your election. Steve Morris pitching a scheme to put himself back on the county commissioner after voters threw him out of office. That's going to be a huge scandal. Huge. Probably the biggest in Cabarrus County history. I can't wait to see it unfold. We might as well put the ballot boxes on top of the shredder and shred everyone's vote if you're just going to attempt to put yourself back into the office after losing your election. One legislator, not Kevin Crutchfield, called the scheme an underhanded workaround against the will of the people. Steve, you're not going to leave the office gracefully. You are going to cause a huge scandal on your way out. Steve, I know it's tough for you to accept, but it's time to bring out the fork and stick it in you because you're done. So, my last comment is, all you people who want to see change, I have a list of about 170 House and Senators' names that if you like to send them a message and tell them what's going on here in Cabarrus County, so they could be on the short list, so they could be on the list to let the people know when the ballots come up in November.
Our next card is from Larry Pittman.
Good evening, I'm Larry Pittman. I live on the Berta Road in Concord. I just want to bring something to your attention that you may not be aware of. I'm going to assume you're not aware of. I tried to answer a survey from the Parks and Recreation Department the other day, and I'm sure if they'd have gotten it, they wouldn't have liked a lot of my answers. But the last part on there was a thing about stuff they want to do about parks and stuff, and it said, figure you'd have $100 to spend, and you go through these items, and how much of that would you put on these, and it has to end up with $100. I went through it zero and everything, so my total was $0 instead of 100. And therefore, the system would not allow my survey to go back to me. Now, that kind of thing needs to be changed. That smacks of an elitist, don't care what the people really think attitude. It occurred to me that if that happened to me, similar things might have happened to other citizens. And I've always, my 11 years in North Carolina House, as a pastor, I've always stood for the rights of the people to be heard. And a survey that is set up in such a way that if they're not going to like the way you answer that stuff, they aren't going to hear from you. That needs to be changed. I understand. I didn't do that last section the way they wanted it done, but the survey as a whole should have been able to send back into it. And I hope you'll talk to them and change that going forward. Make it to where when people have something to say, you hear them. Thank you.
Okay, the next card is from Wesley Honeycutt.
Les Honeycutt from Midland. One of my favorite chapters in the Bible is 1 Samuel 17, David versus Goliath. As I was reflecting on this story this past week, something new jumped out. Each morning for 40 days, Goliath would threaten the Israelites. Goliath, from a position of power, used intimidation to paralyze them with fear. Goliaths come in all shapes and sizes today, whether it be a bully at school or a politician abusing power. When posts began circulating that there might be efforts to add 2 commissioner seats, someone posted on Facebook that she had spoken to Representative Kevin Crutchfield, and he said he was not aware of an effort to do this. I commented on that post. Kevin is definitely willing to lie. Remember when he said there wasn't a way to give back the PPP loan money he received? That was unequivocally a lie. He made this statement on video at the Midland Town Council meeting, by the way. Kevin responded with, I think it's time we meet face to face. First of all, I have no idea who you are. You're probably not even a real person, and you and I need to be face to face. Just let me know when and where. After I offered to meet him at this commissioner's meeting, in a series of messages, Representative Crutchfield called me a coward 6 times, a fool, and an idiot, told me he wasn't unhinged yet, and that he had ran out of reason when I called him a liar. He told me he would find me on 4 separate occasions. He sent me a screenshot of my address from GIS saying location found once he figured out who I was. I told him that my offer to meet him at the commissioners meeting was still on the table, but he unfortunately was not welcome at my home due to his erratic behavior. He responded that I gave up the right to determine the time and place when I brought his family into it, which is something I did not do. He, however, brought my family into it with his threats of, I will find you, as I don't believe he meant he would find me and take me out to lunch. An associate of Kevin said I was going to awaken a sleeping dragon and to keep my eyes open because he was looking for me. He was upset about a video I shared on my page that someone else had made regarding Kevin's PPP loans and some land acquisition that took place after those that were forgiven. I'm nobody special. I'm not the only person to call out one of Kevin's lies, but for some reason he zeroed in on me, and I'm thankful. I'm not afraid of people like him. God opposes the proud and gives grace to the humble. For those of you who hold political power, do some reflecting. Are you, like Goliath, trying to lord your power over everyone, or like David, are you willing to defend what is right in spite of the adversity you might face? As representatives, you are to represent the people, not the Eli Lillies of the world. We tried to tell you last meeting, and you spat in our faces handing out more incentives. And in spite of all the deceptive mailers filled with half-truths, the people rejected this quid pro quo regime that has been running Cabarrus County. I tell my kids often we should stand up for what is right, even if we're the only ones, and no matter what it costs. That is why I will continue to speak out. Goliaths are bullies. They're prideful. They make threats day after day. But the problem with choosing to live like Goliath is that eventually God sends a David.
The next card is from Amy Palacios.
Amy Palacios, and I am from Harrisburg. So I'm standing here today. I honestly don't care if there's 5 county commissioners or 20 seats. That has nothing to do with what I'm here for today. It's more justice. Jay White has way too many positions. He has DSS, he's over DSS child support, he's over the county contract, he was over the school board. He uses his positions of power in way too many ways. He is the top county the county defense lawyer in the county. And even personally, I've been greatly affected by that. My husband beat me up, dragged me, tried to kill me, and Jay White deemed him in and out of competency 3 times in 3 years, and then tried to make him be over children. He currently has a supervised visitation order, but Jay White, in a 6-month period of time, got 3 financial orders. One for me to pay the man that beat me up and was in jail for 6 months, $70,000. Another to pay Jay White himself, $30,000. And another to pay my first ex-husband that I had joint custody with for over 8 years, $2,800 a month because I made 3 times what he made. This man has extorted me. He has not just done this to me, but a lot of people in this county. He has created fake paperwork. He has taken things out of files. Even a month ago, I was taken to court. I paid this astronomical $70,000, but then told if I don't pay $5,000 to Jay White right now today, I'm going to jail by Judge Knut's indefinitely until I've given him this money. And then right after that, they told me that I have to pay the other $25,000 in 30 days. So it's extortion, it's abuse. He needs to stop wearing so many hats. I ask right now that he has a Damascus moment, that he turns from Saul to Paul, that he becomes a person of accountability, that he does his job. The people that are up here saying nice things about him are being paid $800 a kid to hold these kids in their house. It's a human trafficking scheme to take kids. I've never had my kids taken from DSS, but I'm part of an advocacy, and there's a lot of children that are being taken, and each child that's put in foster care and group homes, they're being paid $800 a kid. The state is being paid.
Okay, that completes all the cards that have been turned in, and so we now move to the consent agenda. Items on our consent agenda are ones that were discussed at length at our work session 2 weeks ago.
So I was at the commissioners meeting last night. I was just driving down the street and I saw some folks that were out there protesting, and I figured I'd stop by and see what they were saying. And they were talking about what they were saying was corruption in DSS, and basically saying that there was a conflict of interest with you being the DSS attorney and having private law firms as well.
Okay, well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
It's not a conflict, and because there is a lot of contracts that are made by the county and by other entities that that in and of itself does not create a conflict. In fact, there are several attorneys that represent various municipalities that also work in law firms that's not a conflict there. So there's no conflict here. Conflict is when there is a conflict in interest in regards to what is being done in court. And I'm not representing both parties. Does that make sense?
Right.
So if I'm not representing both parties, then it's not a conflict. Okay?
Yeah, that makes sense. That reminds me of, there was one lady that was there, I think her name was Amy. She was talking about, she had 2 ex-husbands that you represented, and then you had also represented her.
Okay, so let's break that down. It's not true.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Is Mrs. Palacios. Right. Now, Mrs. Palacios has some matters going on in court, and I've never represented her first husband. She professes that I do, but I've never represented her, or represented him. If you go check the court file, you'll see that I've never represented him. His name is Matthew Bledsoe. never represented him. The confusion lies is that I've represented child support. Now, when you represent the department in a child support case, you represent the best interest of the child.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Right.
So if one party, the custodial parent, is asking for child support from the non-custodial parent, I don't represent either party. I will make certain that whatever the child support order is entered according to guidelines, according to the law.
Okay.
Now, something that you may be familiar with or similar to is think about a criminal case. If in a criminal case, you're charged with something, say a speeding ticket, the state of North Carolina is prosecuting you for that speeding charge, right?
Right.
So say you get a ticket in Cabarrus County and you are being prosecuted because you're speeding. So they're representing the state against you.
Right.
Right? Well, what happens if at the same time or at a similar time, somebody hits you or somebody steals something from you? Now you're the victim, right?
Yeah.
So the state still can prosecute you on a speeding ticket, but can also can represent you or represent your interest as it relates to you being the victim of a theft or victim of an assault. Okay, so it's not a conflict there, and that's where it's kind of confusing. Is that since I do child support, the allegation is always that I represent Mr. Bledsoe, which I haven't. Okay. So that it's not a conflict there. Number one. And so it's not there. So her second husband, I have represented in matters, and those are currently pending. And if you go pull the court files, you can look at the court files and see there. But no, it's not a conflict for me to handle his case, because I've never handled a case against Mrs. Palacios as it relates to the second case. Okay?
That makes sense.
Yeah. What else you got?
I'm trying to remember from last night. They were talking about they related the family court. They called it the family court industry, and they were relating things to human trafficking, and there was some mentions of the border crisis and what's going on with that, the whole human trafficking thing down there.
Okay.
Do you know,
I don't know what they're talking about there.
Okay.
So let me tell you another thing, is that anytime a child goes into foster care, it can only be done when a judge makes a ruling that that child is needing to be removed from the home for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
So that if before the Department of Social Services is ever granted custody of any child, that information is provided to a judge, and the judge then makes his or her decision as to whether or not the information is sufficient to warrant the child to be removed from the home. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
When a child is removed from the home, within 7 days, there is a court hearing. And within those 7 days, or at that court hearing, it's called a continued non-secured custody hearing. Non-secured means the child's not in custody or not arrested.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens is you have to have a hearing within 7 days, and at that hearing, a judge makes a determination. Okay, now that the dust has settled and the first decision has been made, I'm going to look at this new and make a determination based upon what I see. Should the child remain in the custody of the department, or should the child be taken back or put back in the parent's home? Okay?
Okay.
Now, the judge that typically makes the call as to whether the child should be removed from the home is typically different than the judge that hears the non-secure custody hearing. Okay?
Okay.
So you got one judge hearing one thing, and then another judge is looking at it and making an independent decision. There is also, and many times, another non-secure custody hearing in front of a third judge that makes the decision, should this child remain in the department's custody, or should the child be returned to the parent's home? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the first court date, a parent can say, hey, I need an attorney. We'll strike that. Before you get to the first court date. So when a petition is filed asking for custody, automatically a parent is provided a provisional attorney, because you have a right to have an attorney in this situation.
Like a public defender, kind of?
Correct. So you're automatically appointed an attorney.
Okay.
Then you get to court on that first court date, and the judge then says, in your case, you have a right to have an attorney appointed to you. You've been provisionally appointed attorney X. Do you want to ask for that attorney to be confirmed as your attorney? Do you want to represent yourself, or do you want to get a court-appointed attorney? What would you like to do? And you say, I want to get the court-appointed attorney. So the attorney that's provisionally appointed to you is then confirmed as your attorney. Okay? You don't have to pay for him or her.
Right.
And you have that attorney all the way through the case. Okay? So at each step of the way, you and your attorney, every time we have a hearing, can say, wait a second, I want that child to be returned to me. And the judge has to make a decision, is it in the best interest of this child to be returned to the parent or stay in the custody of the department? Okay?
Okay. So in your role with DSS, are you the provisional attorney, or?
No, I'm representing the department, so that the parent's attorney is the one that's provisionally appointed to each parent.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay. So you have an attorney that's appointed to you. Now, if, for instance, you get 3 hearings in, or it doesn't matter, but at any point in time you can say, you know what, I don't want a court-appointed attorney, I want to hire my own attorney. Well, at that stage, either we typically would continue the case for you to have an attorney, you hire your own attorney.
Yeah.
Okay? So let's say we're on a hearing date and you say, I don't want a court-appointed attorney, I want to hire my own attorney. Okay, that's fine. So we continue the case out 30 days. Will that be enough time? We find out. Is that enough time? You need more time? What is it? So on the next court date, you come back in and you have your attorney that you've hired. We go forward with the hearing. If during that period of time you can't afford one, you lost your job, whatever it may be, they're too expensive, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You come back into court and say, listen, I couldn't afford an attorney. I want to go back to get a court-appointed attorney. Guess what? The court will consider, and many times, reappoint you an attorney. Okay?
Okay.
So you are always going to have the opportunity to ask for and typically get an attorney in court as it relates to your child. Okay? Even if you go to the point you get a court-appointed attorney, you want to represent yourself, I don't want to pay my own attorney, you can go bouncing back and forth, however you want to do it. It's always in the court's discretion as to what's going on. And it's rare, I can't even think of a time that a person that has asked for an attorney has not been given one based upon his or her status. And I do know for a fact there is one case, that this case is over with, that the mother was driving a Maserati and was allowed to have a court-appointed attorney. So if you want an attorney, you still have to fill out some paperwork, but yes, you're afforded one. Okay?
Okay.
What other questions you have?
I can't think of anything. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I mean, it's the information that is being told to others is not correct, and it's a sad situation because it's just not truthful, and The problem is, by statute, information that we handle in some cases, in many of our cases, is confidential, so we can't talk about it, okay? But I can assure you that every step of the way, attorneys were available, and I know for a fact that attorneys were appointed, and they were retained. So there were attorneys every step of the way. So I'm happy to clear up any other questions or anything else you may have that may have been told to you.
I just remembered there was a mention of gag orders and no contact orders being used to suppress free speech. What do you know about that?
Okay, don't know anything. There's no gag order that I know of. And you said a protective order?
I think it was a no contact order. A
Okay.
lady was saying she had somebody had put a no contact order between her and her child.
No, not in any of the cases that were mentioned at the Board of Commissioners meeting. Okay. Now, what has happened at times is it's called a gatekeeper order. Now, a gatekeeper order is when somebody files things frivolously and they are taking up the court's time on things that are not properly filed. And at that point in time, that is the court's decision whether a gatekeeper order needs to be filed or not.
Okay. So gag orders and no contact they're not part of the DSS thing?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Gag orders, I don't know, I don't know of any gag order that has been entered in any DSS case that I've been involved in. And a no contact order, there has never been a no contact order in those words. Now let me tell you what could be close. Okay, so so that if somebody's bleeding that statement over. So for instance, if a parent assaults a child and they're charged with child abuse,
Right.
parts of their conditions of release when they're released from jail is, one, you're going to show up for court, but two, as a condition of release, it may say, do not have any contact with the alleged victim, indirect or directly, while this case is pending or pending. Okay?
Okay.
So that is not something that the department would institute. That is something that the criminal judicial official has put in as a condition of release. As a result of that, the department would have to abide by that order, because if you have a condition of release saying you can't have contact with your child because you have allegedly assaulted your child, and then we say, well, come on and visit, well, we are violating that condition of release and subjecting you to be rearrested because you violated your condition of release. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So we don't have a no contact, we do not have no contact orders. We abide by a criminal condition of release that may say have no contact. Another way of no contact is mom and dad have domestic violence going on in the house, okay? Say that bleeds over and the child is present and mom or dad, doesn't matter, takes out a domestic violence restraining order against the other. You with me?
Yeah.
In that, the judge may say in the civil case, the perpetrator cannot have contact with the mother or the child, okay?
Okay.
So that's a court order saying they can't have any contact. Now, if the department is involved in that case, we would abide by that no contact order and not recommend visitation until that no contact order is stricken. And in fact, in the past 30 days, I went to a domestic violence protective order or courtroom and said, Your Honor, we have custody of these parents' child, and we are not we have to abide by the court's order not to allow one parent to have visitation because of this no contact order. To the extent the court would consider striking that provision, we would tell you that the only time that parent or either parent would have visitation with this child would be supervised by the department at the department. So whatever created the problem is not there anymore, because it's typically husband and wife or mother, father against each other if the child's not involved.
Yeah.
And then the judge makes the ruling whatever he or she believes is appropriate. So there's not many times, there are times when that takes place, we will go to court, explain to the court what's going on, and then the court makes the decision, I'm striking this provision as it relates to the child, but I'm keeping the provision as it relates to the mother and the father. Okay?
Okay.
Anything else?
I think we're all good.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Right, so, yeah, that's all I've got. And, again, thank you to the folks that I was able to interview. I appreciate you coming on to the video. And I was glad that I was able to just see something that I saw interesting and get the opportunity to give both sides of the story their opportunity to talk. And for anybody who's watching, thanks for making all the way to the end of the video. I usually don't say this, but I will say it this time. Consider subscribing and let me know in the comments if you found this interesting and what you think about it. And if you would like to see more Cabarrus County local journalism stuff, I probably won't, but I don't know, maybe I will. If I see something interesting again, I might get out and talk about it and make a YouTube video. But that's all I got for now, so have a blessed day.